This week, we're going to hack some pancakes with Lesley Carhart from Motorola Solutions. Bo Bullock, even. His tech segment is pre-recorded on bypassing AV on Android devices, and that'll air for our technical segment this evening. In the security news this week, D-Link gets slapped with a lawsuit. Newsflash, Flash has more vulnerabilities. A few politically charged news stories. Don't make the sign for peace if you're using biometrics. The shadow brokers retire. Leave us with a very nice gift, or several gifts, actually. And a new tool for tunneling DNS using PowerShell. All that and more on this edition of Paul's Security Weekly. This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly.
Brought to you by Tenable Network Security, creators of Nessus, the world's best vulnerability scanner. Jumpstart your security program today and evaluate Security Center CV, the continuous security monitoring solution. For more information, visit them on the web at tenable.com. The average time between being hacked and realizing you've been hacked is 1 year. Can you afford to let an intruder roam your network for that long? Can your company weather the fallout when this comes to light? Black Hills Information Security can help find the bad guys in your network and train you to do it yourself. Email consulting at blackhillsinfosec.com to find out how a hunt teaming engagement can help you find a persistent threat in your network. The SANS Institute, the most trusted source for computer certification training and research. Visit sans.org to explore their full curriculum and latest training offers.
Welcome to the show. I'd like to introduce you to our host, a man who looked at the veggie pizza and said, "Oh, not nearly enough meat." Paul Asadoria.
Welcome, everyone, to this edition of Paul's Security Weekly. This is episode 496. Very excited to be here this evening, joined here in studio by the illustrious Larry Pesce from InGuardians. Welcome, Larry.
Yay. 2 weeks in a row.
In studio.
It's crazy.
Very nice. Looks like we have a cast of characters on the lines via Skype.
Don't we always?
Yes, we do. Mr. Jack Daniel is here with us. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you very much. Good to be back with you.
Joff Thayer is here with us. Welcome, Joff.
Why, thank you, Paul, and g'day this evening. Very good to be here again.
Mr. Jeff Mann is here with us. Welcome, Jeff. Oh, Jeff's on mute. We saw him wave. We didn't hear him, though. It's okay. He hit the cough button.
Sometimes this is the most intelligent thing he said.
And we missed it. We missed it. We have episode 500 coming up pretty soon, in about a month.
Yay!
And I think most of the cast and crew will be here in studio. I think maybe with the exception of Carlos, everyone will be here. Mm-hmm. I think is if we count heads, that's what it'll end up. So it's not going to be your typical episode 500. We're actually doing like a little invite-only event. I thought I'd do something different this year, basically because we didn't have a lot of time to plan the way this episode fell. And our operations manager actually just started last December. Sam just started last December. So
not enough time.
Yeah, we were doing like year-end sponsorship stuff and then said, oh, we're doing episode 500. And everyone was like, well, we want to all come to the studio. I'm like, yes, all come to the studio. We'll figure out what to do with ourselves once we all get here. But we will do an episode that evening. And anyone, hopefully, we'll have room for everyone that shows up to be on the show.
Awesome.
of course, Sam's like, you said you were going to have like a small little event. She's like, I counted 45 people that you were inviting. I'm like, yeah, it's all good. It's all good. And she's like, and then you just keep adding people. I'm like, well, I feel bad for people getting left out.
Yeah, well, it's like a wedding. You invite 300 people, 150
That's right.
show up.
Exactly. So we'll have
the rest send gifts.
Yeah.
So send gifts.
I don't know. That's a danger. You saw who we were inviting. We might get some very interesting gifts.
That could be a lot of fun.
It could be.
Okay, so send gifts.
We should do like an InfoSec Secret Santa or something next year. That would be fun.
I am super excited. I have booked my flights today, so I am ready. I'm locked in. We're going to have a great time.
It's going to be fun.
I think I'll play the role of drunk Uncle.
Drunk Uncle.
Drunkle.
Yeah,
we'll call him Drunkle.
Drunkle, that's
your new nickname, Jack. Drunkle. Do we have IT Pro has an announcement. Basically, as of February 1st, all current premium members will be granted the highest membership level available. So make sure you go sign up at itpro.tv/Security Weekly and use the code SW30. InfoSec World, which is an awesome conference, your 10% discount code that we are promoting is OS17-SW. This will give them, the listeners, 10% off the main conference or the World Pass. I'm not sure what the difference is for that.
Clearly, one is the world.
The world. You get a pass to the world. Imagine that. The graphic went away, but it's in April 3rd through the 4th is the... we need to put that in the show notes. Because I'm like old now, I can't read it. 3rd through the 5th. Is that what that says, Larry?
Yep, it does.
And you're older than me, and you can read it.
But see, I have these glasses.
You have glasses.
You know what the next step is, Paul? Glasses.
Listen to you, Paul, claiming you're old.
I know.
Come on,
well,
man.
you know,
you're killing me.
all you fine folks help me feel young. Thanks for that.
But you know what? I will say that this mohawk is probably going to be one of the last hurrahs, and I'm holding on to it for as long as possible because we discovered this summer that I have a quickly receding hairline.
Yes,
and you
do.
You get to do the reverse mohawk eventually.
Exactly.
Reverse mohawk.
And I'm just going to have to do the Ed SCOTUS and suck
Jack,
it up.
I think it was Wendy Nather that said, "Oh, it's so cute, your age." She's like, "We're going to send you a Fisher Price laptop as your gift." Like, I can't wait. I'm excited. Let's bring on our guest for this evening. We're very excited to have Lesley Carhart here on the show from Motorola Solutions, also of the U.S. Air Force Reserve. You can't talk about much of what you do, which we understand for the U.S. Air Force. However, Lesley is a veteran in the security incident responder, digital forensics analyst, security education speaker and blogger, and a rattingly prolific Twitterer, I'm told. Did I say that right? Did I say that word right?
No.
Irritatingly. What did I say? I didn't even say English.
I don't know what you said.
We must all follow her immediately, I think.
That's a strange word. Come on now.
I'm working on
terrified
that. That's my
to
New Year's
turn 40
resolution to
with
use
what it's
smaller
done
words.
to Paul.
Yeah, you can't use big words like that. Lesley, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's not the first time I've said. There should be a clip
It's
of
not
me
the first time you've had a hard time
saying
saying big
dumb
words.
stuff on the show.
Second knife.
You could have some awesome clips of me saying dumb
Second
stuff
knife.
like that. Anyway.
Second.
Paul, talk to Lesley.
Sorry. Lesley, how did you get your start in information security?
I've actually, I hate telling my story because it's like the prototypical hacker story, and that's not normal. I started out programming when I was 7 or 8, and then it was a .com era, and I got picked up when I was about 14 as a developer.
Damn.
And I got involved really early on in the security community in Chicago. So obviously that all went to hell after the .com bubble burst, and so I enlisted, and that was a pretty good decision. So I had wanted to be in the security space for a long time, and I had been working towards it in a hobby kind of situation for a long time, and I'm happy to be in the field now.
Awesome. So when did you start doing, so what was the first kind of thing you did in security? Was it incident response and forensics, or was it separate or kind of together? I know they go together, but...
I worked in a NOC, then I worked in a SOC. You know, the very prototypical way to get into the blue team is, you know, just doing like SOC analyst work, handling tickets, taking calls.
That was very like Dr.
reversing.
Seuss. Do you have like a Dr. Seuss rhyme to talk about your early, like there was a NOC and a SOC? That would be awesome. No, that's really cool. So I want to talk with you a little bit about incident response. We did a segment actually on Enterprise Security Weekly late last year, but I want to get into a little more of the technical details on this show. And I want to ask you, like, what do most people get wrong when it comes to incident response?
They think it's an entry-level job. It's just something that you start out with in security. And really in-depth, any kind of hacking, the most important thing is having a lot of foundational knowledge and a lot of other things to be good at incident response. So you don't just go get your GCIH or something and become an incident responder. You bring in years of experience in all kinds of things, from networks to systems administration to security operations to pen testing. You bring that all together, and then you forget all of the minute technical detail because you become a glorified project manager. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
but really,
you're kind of right, yes.
But really,
go ahead.
That's really funny.
You have to become a jack of all trades and a master of few.
Yes.
Because you have to know a little bit of everything.
Is that one of the most difficult parts of incident response, is the coordination effort? That's what I've always felt. I wanted to get your take on that, though.
I love it, and some people hate it. It's like any niche in security, and you guys are talking about this all the time. Like, people find their niche, like whatever it is, whether it's exploit development or vulnerability research or physical pen testing, malware analysis, and you find that and it speaks to you and you do that, and that's going to be your area of security. But for me, maneuvering people and putting together a case, I like that stuff. I like taking all those different niches of security and melding them together to solve a problem.
And along those lines, communication is obviously a foundational element to incident response. How do you suggest to folks who might be building an incident response program that they communicate with all of the different parties that are involved when you're responding to an incident, from the technical security folks to the systems administrators to the network administrators to the help desk to management to the end users? Typically, all need some level of communications when there's an incident that has occurred or is currently occurring. What are the best way to build that communications infrastructure?
So I've got to kind of like channel Ed SCOTUS here. It's really, this is the reason why we have incident responders and incident handlers. So the incident handlers are doing much more of the outreach stuff and the communication stuff, while the incident responders are doing more of the technical coordination. And if you have both of those, your people who are doing the technical work aren't getting swamped. They aren't constantly trying to reach out to people because they have somebody who's doing that outreach for them the entire length of the incident. They're making the calls to HR and to the security team and to legal and to all the affected people in the organization. So that's why you dedicate people to those roles, and it's why it's worth the money, because otherwise your people are getting screamed at by panicking executives the entire time they're dealing with a data breach.
So in those different groups, such as legal, you don't recommend that someone from legal like kind of take point and be the incident handler. Like, this should be almost like a neutral sort of third party that can interface with all those different groups, right?
In my opinion, that should be a dedicated role, and you should have representatives from all those fields who you have contact information for and backups, so you know who you're going to call in legal at 2 a.m. on Christmas. But other than that, you should have a dedicated person in the security team who's doing the communication with those representatives.
Now, when we get into incident response mode, where, you know, like you said, all of these groups are doing their thing, they're all, in essence, collecting information, and especially as the incident handler, you sort of need one place to go to where you can look at all of that information and then disseminate it out to the appropriate parties. What tools do you recommend to collect information and track information when you're doing incident response?
So you need some kind of knowledge management system, obviously, and I'm not going to tell you which one of those is a better choice for you and your environment. The things that you have to look out for is making it completely separate from the rest of your network and from the rest of your ticketing systems. You don't want that. You want that air-gapped at the very least. You don't want any connection between the systems you're using in security for incident response and the systems that could be compromised during an incident. So, you know, you can use whatever you want. You can use a wiki, you can use SharePoint, you can use a ticket management system, you can use any kind of content management system you want, you know, weigh the security risks and your ability to administer it yourself, but keep it separate, keep it dedicated to that purpose, and have very clear guidelines about how stuff, especially malware samples, get posted to it.
That's interesting. And that's essentially to preserve that system from being affected by whatever incident you're going through, right? That being the worst case scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just, hey, is this system going to get ransomware? It's like, are we dealing with an advanced actor who wants to go find the security team and find out where the state of the investigation is? I see a lot of incident responders at certain organizations I've dealt with who use email to send messages about an incident back and forth, and then they find out a couple weeks later that their Exchange server's been compromised. So, at that point, you don't know. Does the attacker know everything you've discussed up to that point if you weren't using encrypted mail? It's very possible they do, and you have to assume that they do. So
I'd argue they may even know if you are using encrypted mail.
True.
Depending on what level of access they have.
absolutely. So absolutely have good out-of-band communications. Pick something that works for you and you could administer in your price range and stick with it.
But when it comes to notifying the end users and management, do you want to fall back on the way you would normally communicate with those groups in communicating pieces of the incident, or do you still keep some of that separate?
So that's like an ideal world versus reality kind of thing, and that's a big part of being an incident responder, is recognizing what's reality and what your ideal world is. You want to be using phone calls and fax machines not connected to that network to send that data. Can you really do that when you're trying to reach somebody in Malaysia in the middle of the night? Probably not. You might have to use text messages or email. You might have to use instant messenger, but you do your best. You try to keep that stuff out of band. You maybe send them an email saying, call me, and you have them call you on a landline that's not on the same network as the compromise is potentially on. So.
In incident response, and this is largely from my experience in incident response, Larry, I imagine you had the same experiences working for a university and in your other jobs, and
healthcare,
me working for a university as well, right? You do incident response, but after you do a few cases, you're like, it's the same thing that's biting us time and time again, and it's not getting fixed. So for you, Lesley, like, what are some of those things that are, like, time and time again frustrating for you to see as the cause of the incident?
So I work at a managed security provider, so I deal with a wide range of things, and I've worked with a lot of different organizations. But you see the same problems, and those problems are usually coordination with management. Why we keep seeing the same things? Look at the target breach. Flat network, no VLANs. One subnet could entirely had no restrictions on accessing another sensitive VLAN or another sensitive subnet. And we see that all over the place. Nobody wants to spend the time to set up multiple VLANs and segregate their network. That's hard. That takes a lot of administration manpower. And so you see that a lot. And of course, everybody says the biggest risk to security is end users. And I hate that, because we exist to serve end users. We don't exist to do security. We exist to secure a business that has a business goal. And you can't just be like, my biggest security problem is people, because it might feel that way to you, but you exist to serve those people. So you do what you can. And even if they pose a risk, you have to do your best to work within the confines of that business.
Kind of building on that is end users are, I don't want to say most often, but they are somewhat in the chain of events a lot of the time when we talk about phishing and things like that, which are oftentimes the way pen testers and attackers alike get into a network. What advice do you have for and people will come to me and ask me, like, how do I define what constitutes an incident? Like, and how do I rank that? And they're so overwhelmed with this task that they're like, what's best practice? And I'm like, well, what's best practice for you? But that doesn't really help them, define all of these things in their environment. And I'm sure, working for an MSSP, you get this question a lot as well.
Yeah, I agree. I get asked that a lot too, and I give pretty much the same unpleasant answer. But there are resources out there to help, even if they're not the best resources there could be. Like, you've got the NIST cybersecurity framework. You've got everything SANS put out there on incident response. So there's a lot of resources out there that'll help you define incidents. But really, when you're defining incidents, it's like the same process as securing your network originally, which is identifying your crown jewels, saying, what do people want to steal? Who could be targeting me? And getting involved in all the business units to ask them what's really important that they're doing. So the same process applies of finding out what's valuable and what could be targeted. And then that's how you define what an incident is. If we sell widgets and widgets are how we make our money, then an incident is something that affects our widgets getting out there.
Right. No, that's some sound advice for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to ask a variation of that question. What's some advice for first steps? Right after law enforcement calls you and tells you you've been breached.
Which is always what happens, of course. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
basically some do's and don'ts.
You vet everything. You vet everything. You don't take anything at face value. You confirm all the evidence yourself, and you figure out what's going on. And before you do any of that, you calm the hell down. Don't panic is like my number one incident response rule. So you need to have a plan in place so that you're not thrown into a tizzy just trying to cope with the fact you might have been breached. You have those plans in place and you practice them over and over and over again so that when bad stuff happens, you respond without thinking about it. And so you get in there, you confirm that everything you've been told is true, then you figure out what's going on, and you spend a reasonable amount of time figuring out what the hell is going on. Because usually when it's law enforcement that calls you, they don't give you a whole lot of information. They tell you you have something bad happening, and maybe they give you an IP address, and that's about it. So you really have to spend some time trying to evaluate what happened.
I love the don't panic. I'm told you have a background in practicing martial arts, and it's the same thing why you practice, is so that when there is a moment where something bad is happening, you react without thinking about it because you've been training.
And it's incident response is a universal thing. It's not just a security thing. And that's something that a lot of us miss, is that fire departments and police departments and stuff have been doing incident response training for decades, maybe longer. Military does incident response to like nuclear, biological, chemical. Those processes for training people to deal with really intense, high pressure situations have been around for a long time.
One of the foundational elements that when I speak with people at incident response somehow manifested itself into a multiple choice question, Lesley. So what's the most important thing in the incident response process? Is it A, knowing where your sensitive data lives, B, knowing which systems and applications you have and where they're located, or C, knowing who owns the data and applications, or D, all of the above? That was a pretty softball multiple choice question, I thought. But
I mean, like, the easy response to that is D, all of the above.
Right.
You need to know all those things just to secure your network. Like I said before, it's not just incident response. That's like, where do I put my sensor? Where do I monitor my network? So you've got to know all those things.
And the biggest struggle that I've noticed is the last one, knowing who owns all of your data and applications. I feel like a lot of organizations really struggle with that. Certainly when I worked for a university, it was a pretty large university. There was lots of systems, lots of departments. And I'm like, who owns that system? And I was like, I don't know. And then like you hear the stories of like the server that was built into the wall kind of thing. Like no one owns it. No one even knows it exists. It's inside of a wall. How do organizations, like, what is your advice for them to map it out? And mapping it out is one thing, but knowing who owns which data and which applications is a totally different thing.
It's hard. It's really hard. And that's where that human element comes back in again. And that's why security people need to be able to talk to human beings. You need to build those relationships with the other teams in your company. You need to not be the security guy who just blocks their websites who they hate. You got to try to build a relationship so they tell you what's important. I mean, even if it's like, I've had a lot of great success with like scheduling security lunches and just making them informal and being like, hey, who wants to come out and learn about hacking? And just inviting non-security people in the company to come chat about hacking and have a sandwich. It's worked really well. You want to build those relationships, and you want to be able to have conversations with people about what you really do and why it's important.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe. Is there a particular type of sandwich that draws more of a crowd?
One with meat.
Yes, definitely ones with bacon.
Bacon.
Yeah, I find too that if it's the first time you've ever talked to someone who owns a system or an application, now you have to like start from ground zero and like work your way up. Whereas if you've already spoken to that person about really any security topic, it's a much quicker, much easier way to do incident response.
People get mad when you call them at 3 a.m. and you say, I have to shut off your network connection to your entire your entire production lab, they get really upset about that. But if you've sat there and had a beer with them before,
Right.
and you're like, I'm sorry, man, I know this is a really big pain. I know this is really disruptive, but hey, we've got this really bad thing happening and I really need your help. That makes a world of difference.
I completely agree. More questions on incident response for Lesley before we transition into how did you get started in forensics?
I wanted to do forensics back before anybody knew forensics was a thing. It was like the late 90s, and I was going to colleges, and I was like, I want to do forensics. And the computer science department was like, talk to criminal law, and criminal law was like, talk to computer science. And I bought all 4 books that were on Amazon, and I called police departments. I must have called like 15 police departments, and I was like, hey, can I please shadow you? I really want to do this. And they were like, what's your angle?
Yeah.
So it was a long, hard struggle to get into, but I've wanted to do that specifically for a really long time because I find it really, really interesting.
So I have to ask, we were talking with Doug White, I think last week, about some forensic stuff.
Yeah.
He did a technical segment.
Awesome.
And so what's your preferred method of data destruction given the available tools for data recovery?
My preferred method for I get to pick from any.
Any method. I have one that I really hope you talk about and mention, but
well, if I get to pick from any, I'm going to use thermite because it's just fun.
that's a good one. I was hoping for firearms.
That's enjoyable. If I'm living in a practical world, overwrite with random data one time, then or DGOS and then put screw holes through it.
Or bullets. I was kind of hoping you'd say firearms.
So I've always
the
wanted
Marcus
to do that
Random
talk.
approach, 50 BMG.
I really want to do that talk, and I'm trying to talk Scott Moulton into doing it with me. I want to shoot a bunch of hard drives and see how many actually destroy the platters with various calibers, but I think he thinks that's a very bad idea, so he's never written back to me, but
I think that's a great idea. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Scott, you're insane. It's a great idea.
Totally do that.
No, really. I mean, platters are made of glass now on the drives that aren't SSDs, so they kind of shatter. So,
gotcha.
I still think it requires empirical evidence.
Yes.
I do agree that this requires a suitable study and then a talk. But
Paul, empirical. I'm sorry, that might be a little bit of a.
Yeah, that's way too big of a word for me
I
tonight.
can't stop you guys. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm trying. I'm drinking a lot so that I use smaller words.
So what are some of and I know this is kind of a somewhat controversial question, but what are some methods available to thwart computer forensics investigation? And I know we kind of, when we talk about topics such as this, we're like, well, we're helping the attackers, but I also think we're helping the defenders as well understand where the limitations are.
Encryption, and more encryption. I mean, when you run into an encrypted drive, unless you're an intelligence agency, I mean, you're done. You're done unless you're able to get that code, that passphrase or whatever they use to encrypt the drive with. And even if you are an intelligence agency, I mean, who knows? There's very varying qualities there, but it's going to be a big pain. So yeah, encrypt everything. It makes my life miserable.
Doug's is our resident forensics expert, but the rest of the group, I don't know if you have more forensics kind of questions.
I had one which comes up from my world, which makes me crazy, which in a lot of organizations, even if they have in-house forensics and incident response teams, the traditional security team does not communicate with the incident response and forensics team unless there's an incident. And so there's this isolation. It's like, no, we're gonna call those people when we need them, but we're not going to use them or their contacts. Lesley, do you see that, and how do you break that down? Because the people that do incident response, the people that do forensics, have insights that those of us who do the more traditional defense stuff could really use to do a better job. But in enterprise, I often see there's this isolation, and we waste an enormous amount of time and ignore resources that are available. Is that something you battle with, and how do you overcome that?
There's a temptation to put e-discovery and that legal side of forensics in the same box as legal. and keep them in the law department and keep them isolated under NDAs. So yeah, I definitely have seen people do that. It's horrible, and I agree. It's really detrimental because it separates a large amount of security contacts and security knowledge from your security team. And man, forensics ability is so useful. It's so helpful in doing investigations. I mean, yeah, you've got like memory resident programs and, client-side security programs that show you what processes are running and stuff now that are available, but that's not the same as getting a disk image or a full raw memory image off a computer. So yeah, I mean, you want to have those relationships there. That's just a matter of slowly trying to break down those walls with your legal team, though, because, of course, they're incredibly secretive about data that might have to do with HR proceedings. And you've got to understand that e-discovery and digital forensics, while not the same thing, really do have a lot of overlapping skill sets and a lot of overlapping tools, and it can save you a lot of money to reuse those tools between the two teams.
I wanted to transition to topics of training. Full disclosure, SANS is a sponsor of the show, and
I teach for them.
Yeah, and several of our hosts teach for SANS as well. Along those lines, I know you're probably not going to answer this question directly, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who is your favorite SANS instructor, given that you have multiple SANS certifications and have for some time?
Oh, that's vicious. Oh, my God.
She's drinking. She's like, I need more martini.
Paul, is that the question you decided to ask instead of the ask grabby question?
No, we're going to ask that question too. Lesley does not escape from the 5 questions.
No one.
As they are written.
No
That's
one
right.
escapes yet.
I'm ready. Okay, so I like a lot of SANS instructors, and I follow a lot of them, but everybody already knows that my personal hero is Ed SCOTUS, so...
Tough to beat.
Yeah, he has a secret
yeah,
lair
that's
in
hard to beat.
house. That's like my aspiration in life, to have like a secret hidden office that's full of steampunk stuff. So, you
Yes. He does have that going for him. And he's dashingly handsome as well, which helps. Sorry. Did I say that out loud?
And he makes meth in the girl. No, he doesn't. Never mind.
Fascinating.
That's really what tips the scale.
Paul, I believe you might
I hear
have a
he was on the
man
Mexican
crush.
mob. Yeah.
I think they call that a man crush. So you wrote a great article on your blog, Lesley. Maybe you could summarize it, and people should go read it if you're going through a GX certification. But what advice do you have for students that are going through GX certification? And do I have to paint my fingernails? Because I felt like that was an important part of the process, and I totally did that. Is that necessary?
That is always an important part of the process to do anything in security, is having fabulous fingernails. So if you don't have fabulous fingernails right now, turn around and rethink your life.
We got to work on that.
But GIAC, first of all, people keep messaging me if they can just buy some random books online and take the test, and that's a really bad idea.
Well,
the SANS curriculum is tied very closely into the GIAC tests, but your money.
Yeah, the answer is yes, you can, but will you succeed?
Probably
unknown.
Yeah, they will let you do it, but you'll probably be wasting a few $100s trying to do it. So it's better to somehow get go to a community SANS or something, or a SANS mentor program, and get the actual books to take the test with, because they're made to take the test with. And I'm not going to give them to you, because I'm not going to give you the books for free and get in legal trouble and stuff. So stop asking me, please.
You got a lot of interesting questions based on your blog post.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So what are some of the tips and tricks that you have in your post?
Okay, so obviously everybody who's taken a SANS class knows that you get the books. The test is open book, open note, and the books don't normally have table of contents or indexes in them. So if you want to look things up while you're taking the test, you need to have a really good index that you make yourself, so you know what page things are on, because there's always going to be something you haven't memorized, like a specific tool or something. So the real trick is finding an index system that works for you. I made my own index system. It might work for you, or you might like somebody else's. On my blog post, I link a few different types. Mine involves tabbing out sections of the book and then using a color-coded spreadsheet to show where each section of the book and each tool is. And that works for me. You might find something else that works for you, but definitely taking advantage of that indexing and also the practice test is super important.
Yeah, I completely agree. And in fact, it's funny when I was reading your post, I'm like, oh, I did the same thing. But I want people to know this, and I'm certain you'll agree, that you can't just somehow bootleg copy the books illegally and then index them where all the topics are and then go take the test and think that you have like a really good chance of passing. You still have to, even though you have that, you have to know the material and familiarize yourself with all of the material in all of the course books in order to have a chance to pass the test. There's
no such thing as a dumb question, but I ask things that are very, very. I get asked things that are very, very close about SANS tests. Like, you cheat, you're probably not going to pass. You don't study, you're probably not going to pass. It's a serious test, and it really tests if you know the material, not just memorization.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Based on that and my experience taking the exams, and not as an instructor, that there's not enough time for you to go to the books and look up every answer to every question.
Correct. It's a time-based
test. You have to know.
Yeah.
You have to know. And if you don't,
that's absolutely. I would agree 100% too. And it's funny that you said that because. Paul as well. I did exactly the same thing. I made colored tabs and went through, the several different ones that I've done. And that's absolutely the way you got to do it. You got to be rigorous about it.
So for you, I mean, obviously, Lesley, you've got achieved a lot of SANS or GX certifications. What was the value to you in your career for doing that?
It's actually obligatory in my role that I get one every year. So that's kind of awesome, and it's something to look for when you're picking out a job, what kind of training they send you to and what they require you take after it. So I am required as part of both my positions to get certifications on a regular basis and maintain them. So I don't get a lot of choice, but I find tremendous value in those classes, and I do have a choice about where I take my certifications, yada, yada, yada. So I guess it's an endorsement, kind of. I haven't found much security training that has more value for a week-long class. They really do have a lot of hands-on training, and it's really very practical. So.
Yeah. So my follow-on question to that is, and I agree, obviously, I've been a SANS instructor. A lot of us are SANS instructors here, and SANS has been a sponsor for a really long time. And I've personally been working with SANS for a long time, as has Larry and several others. But for me, one of the things that I struggle with, and I'm curious to get your take on, is what's the value in recertification? And there's actually something we talked with Jeff Frisk about when we had him on the show. But from your perspective, I know a lot of your certs you got years ago, but you've actually kept up with them. Something that I haven't done, and I've had a tough time justifying some of the value for me personally. But for you, like, what was the motivation behind keeping all of those certifications up to date? Was that a mandate from your job, or just something you decided to do?
When I grow up and I'm Jack Daniel, I won't have to do that, but I do want to have career perspectives in the future, depending on the way my life goes. As much as I love my job, you never know how life is going to turn out when you're, whatever age I am, ambiguous age. So you don't know how life is going to turn out, and you want to be prepared with a resume and good certifications all the time, just in case.
Right. Yeah. So it was a career preservation for you to keep those up as a contingency.
You get the books when you recertify. You get the current books, and you can read up on them and see what's new.
Yeah, I also, and I don't just like this for you, Lesley, but I also, the reason that I did them initially was I benefited from the structure. It forced me to take as much of a time out as I could from my job to go to the training, and then forced me to study the materials and take the test, and I had like a deadline to take the test. Like, I benefited from that structure and being forcing myself through the SANS curriculum to be able to do that. So I really liked that. For me personally, it's different for everyone, but it sounds like you're pretty similar in that respect.
If only you'd had such structure in your U.S. government and civics class.
I know. I wish SANS offered a class in government. I did correctly reference the Fourth Amendment today in a previous show, Jeff. You'd be proud of me. I did question it. I kind of phrased it as, like, that's the Fourth Amendment, right? Right. And Doug was like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, Fourth Amendment. That's what I meant. Right.
Good job. I'm proud.
I'm getting there.
Well,
we're at least repealed prohibition, right?
We're at least familiar on the show with our First Amendment rights, and sometimes our second.
Well, and it wasn't as interesting as reading TCP/IP Illustrated Volume 1 twice, which was part of my. I don't know, Lesley, if you did the similar. When I was reading about your SAN certifications and which one you got, and then looking at your study guide, it brought me back to when I was studying for the exams and reading books like that, cover to cover to learn. So.
Yeah, I have horrible test anxiety, so I have to have a good system. So if it works for me, it's probably going to work for anybody.
That's good. That's good. Well, I'm thankful that you shared that with everyone. I think it's great. More questions for Lesley from the group?
Do we want to shift out of InfoSec into like martial arts and marksmanship? And
That's where I was going.
yeah,
And she's doing the fist bump. So I
like
think
so many people, there's a lot more to Lesley than just being brilliant at what her day job is.
So Lesley, was really everyone kung fu fighting? That was my first martial arts question.
There were at least 3 people who were not kung fu fighting. I can confirm at least 3.
So which martial arts have you practiced or do you practice currently?
Currently, I practice Tang Sudo. I practice Dakiti Tercia Serratus, which is a form of Arnis, and I practice Northern-style Shaolin Kung Fu.
Really? Which style of Northern Shaolin Kung Fu?
It's a long fist style.
Holy crap.
Related to...
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I was just going to... That's what I trained in here in Rhode Island.
Really? That's really cool.
So, like, who is
I'll
your...
never be great at it, but...
It takes a long time, right? Was there... so you were saying, was there a specific teacher or, like, lineage that you practice from?
Seafood shoes.
Gotcha. I haven't heard of that one, but that's awesome. That's really funny. We have to meet up at a conference and compare notes. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
No, you have to meet up at a conference and spar.
And spar, that's right.
I want to see
If that happens, go easy on Paul.
My money's on Leslie.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Leslie, go easy on Paul. He's old.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
He did turn 40, so you've got to kick his ass.
After 3 kids, my time to practice kung fu has significantly diminished. So, yes.
So the
Yeah,
thing that
and
kept
you don't
me in
have your
martial arts was
pre-baby
actually
figure
Sans
back.
Iron Fan, and I don't know what happened to it. Like
What
there
was
used to be
that?
a Sans cert for martial arts, but it
Oh,
went away.
really?
Really?
It's funny. I just brought my Iron Fan in today to show the guys because they were kind of like perplexed at the fan. I'm like, no. Like, as you haven't seen like an actual Shaolin Kung Fu fan, like it's not this like it looks like a dainty thing that like you cool yourself off with, but it's really made of metal, and if you hit someone with it, you're really gonna mess them up. So, what's your favorite martial arts movie? Do you get into Kung Fu cinema at all?
Oh man, that's a really hard question. God, Hero is wonderful, but lately, of recent movies, I really like Tai Chi Zero because it was just so cute and funny. It was just an adorable. It was steampunk too, and I really like steampunk stuff. So if you haven't seen Tai Chi Zero, that was really terrific.
Nice. I'm actually, I gave a talk and I'm going to be giving it this year. Everything I learned about security, I learned from Kung Fu movies. So I'll have to share the slides with you. You get a kick out of it.
I would really like that.
I see what you
Get
did
it?
there.
Get it? You
I
get
see
a
what you
kick
did.
out, huh?
Oh, God.
So you also shoot competitively, is that correct?
Yeah, not so much lately, but I have in the past, and I've also taught, and I've taught basic pistol, concealed carry, stuff like that. So
if someone's going
I ran a gun club for a while.
Nice. If someone's going to the gun range for the first time, have never shot before, what is some of advice you have for that person?
Throw out all your expectations and everything that you think you know about people who shoot guns and people who, and just shooting guns in general. Just throw out all of those preconceptions that you have and just go in there trying to learn something new, learning a sport, learning something that is useful in life. And certainly find an instructor that works for you, who you'd feel comfortable with. There's a lot of different instructors out there.
It's funny, my wife refused to take her initial lessons from me. She was like, I can't deal with it. She's like, I need to go take a class with someone else. And I'm like, whatever's comfortable for you.
My
because
answer
you're going to
is-
have a loaded firearm in the same room as me, and that could be in itself dangerous.
Yeah, my answer is, Lesley, I'm sending you my wife.
Yes.
Cool, I'm down. If anybody wants to send their significant other to train with me, I'm happy to do that.
So I'm a huge fan of the Browning Buckmark. Is that what you shoot with?
Ruger Mark III, actually.
I could see the look on her face when I said that. I did that purposely.
I don't judge.
Nice. Very, very diplomatic.
But it's okay if you do.
Oh, that's funny. Jack or anyone else, did you have more questions for Lesley? I want to make sure everyone has equal amounts of airtime. No?
No.
Resounding no.
Well, I was mostly thinking about the fact that my drink is empty, but Lesley is absolutely lovely, so this is not a negative comment upon yourself, but I do need a drink.
Good Lord.
We need you to have a drink too, Joff. Yeah.
So, Lesley, 3 words to describe yourself.
Creative. Exceptional. And silly. There you go.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
A garrote.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
I didn't mean to do that.
In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
Second.
Choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Alive.
Dolph Lundgren. And... Ronda Rousey. She's not doing anything else right now.
Wow. Man.
That is so awesome.
Wow. I could make so many jokes about it just being over so quick, but that wouldn't be appropriate.
But I'm so glad she didn't say Angelina Jolie, because I would have been like, no, it's
No, I gotta throw you guys a curveball sometime, so...
That was really funny.
Somebody has to.
So, Leslie, are you speaking anywhere coming up at any conferences?
Yeah, I'm speaking at B-Side Salt Lake City.
Nice.
On?
Mr. J. Kennedy, and I will be speaking on how to take all of the crap that you think is not related to security and makes you an uncool hacker and making you an awesome hacker with it.
Nice. Very nice.
like that.
And, Leslie, where can people find more information about your website and your awesome Twitter handle?
Okay, so my blog is at tisiphany.net. And hopefully somebody tells you how to spell that. It's also linked on my Twitter, which is Hacks for Pancakes.
Nice.
And I'm pretty much on most social media under that handle.
Lesley, thank you very much for appearing on Paul Security Weekly.
I was really happy to be here.
Fantastic. We're going to take a short break, come back, and we're going to air a technical segment from Bo Bullock, so stay tuned.